fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my God! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled!
It's very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
This is the world's premier online racing simulation. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat from your home computer with the most realistic online motorsports experience you'll find anywhere. Race virtually in the world's biggest events with officially licensed series, cars, and tracks. From the high banks of Daytona to the blistering speeds of Indianapolis, the dirt of Eldora to the world's most legendary road courses. It's all here, and with more than 180,000 people just like you already driving, you'll always have someone to race. Ready to get behind the wheel? Sign up at iRacing.com to get started.
Well, it's time for the endurance round of Ozicar Formula 4. 50 minutes at Australia's most famous, most challenging, most historied motor racing circuit. It's Mount Panorama Bathurst for all of our drivers in Ozicar F4. They're qualifying right now. The 50-minute race is going to have everything around this place. It's a track that demands your focus every single corner, every single lap. And with 50 minutes, the drivers are going to do plenty of them around the challenging corners of this circuit. Over Skyline, the Dipper, other high-speed corners, and of course the chase as well. The slipstream down Conrod Straight and up the mountain straight is going to be massive in these cars, just like it was at Phillip Island last round out. Chaz Mostert managed to come from very deep in the field to capture the win in the second race there. What is he and others going to be able to manage with a big grid of buzzing open wheelers around Australia's motorsports mecca? Thanks for joining us on Simspeed TV. I'm David Haynes, joined by Jason Fewens and Jay Kennedy on the production. Jason, you'd be foolish if you weren't looking forward towards this one.
Yes, this is a round that we've been looking forward to on the calendar since the inception of the season. So that's been proven tonight with a really big field here tonight to make their way around Bathurst. We do have 22 laps here tonight as a plan for this Enduro this evening. So 32 of those 36 cars have put in a qualifying time. So there's a couple that are electing to start at the back of the grid. So they may be preempting a bit of first lap carnage, but a strong field nonetheless, and a fan favourite for a lot of these drivers.
So a big grid, a long race, a required pit stop with a very wide pit window for fuel in this one. Could mix up the strategy, and again, the chance of carnage, the chance of pile-ups and drivers in the wall very, very high with the walls so close, and these are cars that you've really got to push the speed with. So how important will qualifying be with just one race tonight? We'll find out shortly. This is what that grid looks like. Cam Dance on the pole. Could it be by a closer margin though? Look at that. Your front row separated by 1,000th of a second around the 6.2 kilometers of this place. You don't have to look too much further back though to find Chaz Mostert, a weapon in anything he drives. Supercars, GT3, TCR. Finds himself there on the second row alongside James Chastanoff, and it will be the second row because it's a two-wide rolling start for our grid as you take a look at them. Jason, I think some of the people we expected to see up front, Cam Dance, Stuart Vaughan, Chaz Mostert, James Chastanoff, the guys who all battled each other for the wins at Phillip Island last time, but is there anyone deeper in the field maybe catching your attention that we should look out for?
Yeah, Stuart Crawford's put in some good times throughout the season so far, so he is going to be starting a little bit further back, just outside the top 10. Sean Doyle's another one. He's starting outside the top 10 and shown really good pace, top 5 pace in fact. So watch out for him to come through the field, but like you said, slipstream is going to be absolutely critical for these drivers. A lot of smart driving, and pit strategy, of course, is going to play key.
So that front row, Cam Dance in his Motorsports livery, I think it is. Stuart Vaughan in the Daytona USA mobile. Behind him, look for Chaz Mostert in the Lego car. And he's alongside James Chastanoff. 50 minutes on the clock, a rolling start, not especially common, and already a little bit of dramas in the middle of the field there. Not going to affect our top 10 as they try to hold pace car speed, looking for the green flag at the start-finish line to get us going. Pretty hot, pretty slippery track temperature out there. A long race, cars that race so close wheel to wheel. They are going now for the endurance round of Ozicar F4 here at Mount Panorama, and your pole sitter is off to a pretty good start there. Stuart Vaughan trying to play tactical, swap back in behind. Chastanoff trying to come around the outside of Chaz Moss, and I think that'll work as they go up Mountain Straight for the first time. This is where the speed and the slipstream starts to kick in for these cars. They draft and they pack race like nothing else.
Yeah, make their way down Mountain Straight for the first time. Too wide for the leaders. They make their way towards turn 2. It's a single file as they make their way out of the corner there, sorting out the positions. It looks like everybody in the background is following suit as they make their way up the hill for the first time. Tyres are still relatively cool at this point, so you have to tippy-toe and walk on eggshells. But, single file as they make their way up through underneath the Fujitsu sign. Things look like they're under control at the moment.
Sure do. This is the part of the track where the walls are so close. You sit so low in these cars, restricted sight lines around as well. See, up front, is it a matter of bringing the tyres in sensibly, thinking about the strategy in the long game? We ride on board with Thomas Hinz in 5th place. He's looking at Chaz Most's gearbox as they go over Skyline, down towards the Dipper. This, a super challenging, super committed part of the track, and the drivers know this is a long one, but how much will they be holding back? Stuart Vaughan didn't hold back at Phillip Island. He's not held back on this opening lap. He leads them down Conrod Straight. Cam Dance right with him. Got a little bit of a gap to James Chastanoff, but we know how quickly those gaps disappear when these cars get into 6th gear and start reaching speeds 220, 230, 240 k's an hour. So Chaz Mostert's looking for a move, trying to get that spot back off of James Chastanoff. They're side by side on the way into the chase. And around the outside on lap number 1, pretty gutsy stuff from Chaz Mostert. He's going to get his spot back only just. That was a pretty risky maneuver to make lap 1 of 22.
Yeah, I dare say you probably can see the cars of Cam Dance and Stuart Vaughan. They're just creating a bit of a distance out in front. So he's pretty keen to not let them get too far away and run away with it. It is only lap 1 as we start lap 2 now, but too early in the race to allow the leaders to really make a break for it. Bit of a break lock up there for Thomas Hinz as he had a look down the inside of James Chastanoff at turn 1 as well. Looks like it may have just affected his run down Mountain Straight a little bit as he gets a bit of a challenge from Alex McKellar as well in the green distinctive Milo car there on the right-hand side of the track.
Spin off of turn 1 in the background there might have been Craig Kerman potentially. Up front here, Vaughan and Dancer are off to a pretty good start. Look at that camber through Griffin's Bend, costing one of the drivers who loses out. There might have been Hinsey, I think. Oh, and another problem at Griffin's Bend as well for Reese Howell. Crown of the road is very severe there. You've got to be on the inside. The outside's got nothing. The inside grips up really well like Tower Bend at Sebring. Let's have a look here. Oh, well, he did get just a little bit of help there from the driver, out-braking themselves a little bit too much. Up front, though, here, Vaughan and Dance checking out. Chaz Mostert hunting them down. It's 4th place on back here that's forming a bit of a train. Chastanoff, McKellar, Liam Banks up some spots from 9th into 6th, so that's up 3 spots for him. At the expense of Hinsey, who I think is the one, definitely was the one who went wide at Griffin's Bend there, let a car or two through.
Yeah, tyres well and truly up the temperature, making their way through Forest Elbow for that really, really important run down what is the world-famous Conrod Straight. Cars in front weaving, trying to break the toe, but Nathan Verney there, three-wheeling it down the hill, trying his best to stay out of trouble as a few cars make their way around through the racing line. But Nathan Verney there and all sorts of drama on lap 2 of 22.
There you have it. So Chaz Moss doing everything in his power without the slipstream to try to catch the guys in front. But Dance plays this long game in these slipstream battles, doesn't he? So he'll know, I don't want to hold up Stuart Vaughan when there's a lot of strategy and a lot more racing still to come. If we can get clear of everyone else, get our own real estate in 5 laps, then it can be a one-on-one battle rather than being congested in the pack. Early pit stop here from Stuart Crawford. Jason Fewens one to watch in this race potentially.
Yeah, the pit window did open at the end of lap number 1 and actually goes through to lap 15, I think it is. So the first of our stoppers, and Stewart dives into the pits, going for the really, really big undercut. But we're going to take a couple of laps, quite a few laps, I guess, to see whether that's actually going to pay off or not. But don't think he had too much damage at that point. He might have been just strategically trying to get out of the dramas and the traffic that he was in, and trying to find a clean bit of track.
Brody Shepherd's got no clean bit of track in front of him. Hinds and Banks side by side in towards the cutting and still side by side. Hinds trying to go around the outside and Shepherd gets helped around by Sean Doyle there, unfortunately, at the cutting as they all concertina towards the apex. Might have been a check-up there from Shepherd as he's watching the cars go 2 by 2 in front.
Very easily done in these open wheelers, but we are 4 weeks into the season now, so a lot of these drivers should well and truly be aware of what it takes to maintain a clean car in these open wheelers. But we saw a bit of carnage earlier on in the season, particularly at Sandown, but the last few weeks have been really well behaved drivers. Tonight, the first opening couple of laps, we've seen a bit of carnage on track, so
Brady Bolden's low downforce configuration isn't going to help him, and neither is the 3.5 point turn just after Skyline there at the S's that he's making to try to get facing the right way. And unfortunately, it looks like he's done it all by himself as well. Rear lets go as it gets light at the right-hander, and then there's no saving it from there. He does everything he can to get out of the way and not mess up anyone else's race, but that was all him at the start there. We saw lost it, just trying to make it 3 cars for the lead. This is the pack here. David Baz behind Russell Clark and Brody Tressiter and others here, and 74 Sean Doyle with his damage is going to pit in and get out of that.
Yeah, I've been watching Baz on my relative. I think we just saw briefly there on the overlay up 14 spots from 24 inside the P10 now for David Baz. So really good opening sequence of laps for him. So you can see him in the background there just coming onto Mountain Straight. So he's sitting third in a little train of 5 cars. So he's got a good slipstream, good chance to save some fuel. So if he keeps that up, he could be on for really good points all here tonight.
Yeah, a big mover there, no doubt. David Baz. But then so are some of those around him as well. Not as much. Dennis Hancock from 19th to 12th. And this is the kind of race where if you just chip away at them, could certainly work out. I'm not sure those early pit stops are really helping Stuart Crawford or others, because it is a big field, you know, more than 30 cars running. Crawford pitted from up front to be in 22nd and mired in maybe a little bit of traffic there.
Yeah, a bit of a catch-22, because what it does do is give you clean track, but you also lose a slipstream, which would be very, very helpful around here up to, I think it's about 1.3 over the course of the lap if you have good slipstream. So a little bit of sacrifice there, but also by the same token, we've seen a couple of cars get caught out through collateral damage from someone else's mistake. So if you've got no one around you, it eliminates that risk.
Pretty clear track in front of your leaders, so I would expect Vaughan and Dance to go long. They are not managing to pull away from Chaz Mostert, but the 3 of them managing to pull away from the rest. Here's Chastanoth, McKellar, Hinds and Banks. Chasty leading them down towards the biggest braking zone at the chase. Hinds going for a look down the inside. Decisive, tidily done. And he just needs to make sure he stays with the slipstream of Chastanoth. Otherwise, he'll be on the menu and get taken right back.
Yeah, a little bit busy further back in the pack here at the moment. This is a battle for 8, 9, 10 and 11. So this is Tressiter, Clark, Baz and Zalowski all looking for a good run here on what is now lap 5 of 22. So they're well and truly in a little battle here with these guys, and you can see the car of 822, that's Dennis Hancock in the background, just doing absolutely everything he can to try and join the party.
So your highest running car that has made their pit stop is still Stuart Crawford in 21st. He had 28 seconds pit lane transit time, and he is now 38 seconds off the lead. So probably net 7th or 8th at the minute for him. Mostert closed the gap a little more to these 2 in front. This is right where you need to be with how powerful the draft is in these cars. Pretty quick through the corners, slick tyres, wings on them, but they are not overly powerful. So they hit 200 something Ks an hour, and then their top speed starts to hit a brick wall unless you can pick up a slipstream off someone else, even more so at this circuit with its long straights. Looking back, though, at the group of 4th, 5th, 6th and others, and this is Baz in 9th, who's picked up another spot now. Still your biggest mover inside of the top 10 to the front of this pack, trying to make sure Brody Tressida doesn't get away, though. Alex Cuvier is actually the biggest mover here in 20th, but are you going to count it if they didn't have a qualifying time, Jason?
Yeah, well, you still got to make your way through the field, read the traffic. So all we can see a little bit of carnage here as we see one of the green
Sean
cars.
Snell's got a problem, and who else is running slow? Gregory Adams. That is, have you ever, I've never seen a car crab that far. You'd almost go quicker putting it in reverse gear and driving it in the opposite direction. So what has happened? Snell behind Adams here as they come to the highest part of the circuit over Skyline. Cars get really light here. No dramas just yet, but that is just a little too much speed in for Adams. Spins around, bounces off one, and Snell of the John variety will have a spin in sympathy. Very tough to avoid whatever the car in front of you is doing at that point there at the dipper, though.
Yeah, very hard hit into the wall, so that explains just why you saw the car crabbing its way down the mountain again. Very, very hard impact there, and of course just a little sympathy spin there in the background, backing it into the fence line, and then he just literally has to wait for a barrage of cars to come through. So looks like Adams is back up and running. We have more carnage.
Craig Kermond is looped around at the very final corner, and the podcast sponsor on his livery is very apt in this case. Oh, more problems here. Is that David Baz? Oh, dear me. Dear me. What has happened there? Vasco Sarovsky, Max Lumsden, a couple of other cars stopped there. What has happened at Griffin's Bend, turn number 2 on lap 6 here? So, Baz is leading from Clark from Sarovsky at this moment, I think. Yep, that's correct. So then in towards Griffin's Bend they go. David Baz in orange, loses it, hits the outside wall, and bounces back into Sarovsky. Drivers behind, lucky to avoid. Oh dear, the track is then briefly blocked as those cars try to get going, and that's where Lumsden, I think, gets involved.
Yeah, just the door closing there for Lumsden. I'm sure he come around Griffin's Bend there and saw a perfect run on the outside of the corner, and then that quickly closed up as Vasco sort of crept forward, trying to turn around in the right direction or potentially get out of the way. So absolute carnage there on lap 6, but the leaders now make their way around to start lap number 7, so laps are ticking by, and as you can see on the screen, Chaz Mostert, fastest time of the race so far with a 207.2, right on the back of the group of the top 3.
So it's looking like your podium positions are checked out at the moment, but there is great F4 battling all through the field with a group like this. It's now Hinz, Chastanoff and McKellar at this section. The car's coming out of the pit lane at the back there of shot. Here's Hinz on the defensive line in towards Griffin's Bend. Oh, so tough to go round the outside there. The camber really works against you. In addition to it being the long way around, you need massive amounts of overspeed to pull that one off. Hinz knows it, and that's why he defends the inside from Chasty and McKellar on the wagon too. Liam Banks behind him, didn't catch him on the last lap, but he's really not that far back at all.
Yeah, just sitting off the back of the little group here at the moment, but we jump further back up the field. This is Cam Dance looking back at Chaz Mostert. The gap back is 0.7 as they snake their way down the hill. Complete confidence as the car as they make their way down through the dipper and down to the tight left-hander that is Forest Elbow. We said earlier, very, very important to get an absolute perfection run, because you mess up that corner and it affects what is effectively the fastest part of the track. So that can either make or break your lap. But the top 3 at the moment on our screen separated right on at 1 second.
Not a whole lot to do in terms of the pit strategy, other than just picking your lap. These are very fuel efficient cars and they fill pretty quickly, so you're not gonna gain or lose much by trying to short fill them. And the tires are pretty durable as well. They will do 50 minutes, 22 laps quite comfortably.
Yeah, I was going to mention that the benefit of changing tyres certainly outweighed the extra time you were going to spend in the pits. So it is going to be a splash and a dash for a lot of these drivers. I'll be very surprised if any at all actually takes tyres over the course of this 50-minute race. But James Chastanoff now getting back in front of Thomas Hinz. So he reclaims the first of the bridesmaids off the podium as 4, 5 and 6 make their way down Mountain Straight.
Mostert's going to make a move up into second place up the road from them into Griffin's Bend. So a little bit of change at the front pack. What had been status quo, are they letting Stuart Vaughan get away and Mostert's run out of patience? Well, what's happened at the top 3 here? A little more gap between Vaughan and Dance than we were used to. Mostert decides, well, I'm on for this now. Absolutely no hint of a defend there from Dance, who still looks to be trying to play this long game. He does end up washed out a little bit on the wrong side of the crown. So Vaughan still leads, Mostert up in a second, and Dance by no means out of this in third.
Yeah, so Vaughan checked out by 0.8 of a second, so it'll be interesting to see whether Chaz can actually draw that back in on his next flying lap. So he still holds the fastest lap of the race, but only by a mere 10th. So a little bit of clean air in front of him, a little bit of draft, and we'll see what he can actually do. So with that Lego car, very, very distinctive, and we've seen it out the front of the F4 field here a couple of times already this season, so he'll be doing his absolute darnest to make sure it finishes on the top step of the podium again tonight.
Now, I've seen the Lego McLaren F1 car. I've seen the Lego Porsche GT3. Is there a Lego F4 car in the works? Not sure that it's quite as hot at Christmas time. This is your next trio of battling drivers over that 4th, 5th and 6th. Hinzy and Chassis, not afraid to put the boxing gloves on, it seems, but it looks like Thomas Hinz just gonna check his ambitions this lap.
Looks like the three of them may have even stopped fighting a little bit for a few laps because they just dropped Liam Banks off the back of them by about 1.8 seconds now. So he's out of draft range and sitting in the middle of no man's land with a big 4-second gap back to Brodie Tressiter behind him. So jump on board with Chastanoff.
Flashing shift lights as he's close to the rev limit and the top speed on the way in. Catches a little too much of the curb for this kind of open wheeler. They're not a supercar, they're not a GT3. They're not a Trans Am. Gets away with it with a little dab of Oppo, as they say in the business. And he's going to defend again into 4th place.
Interesting to see Thomas Hinz there sat on the left-hand side of the track. So he really wasn't interested in sitting in the wheel tracks of Chastanoff and benefiting from the drafts. So missing the opportunity there to get a tow along and save some fuel. So not exactly sure what Thomas Hinz's game plan is there at the moment, but plenty of experience and plenty of laps around Bathurst over the years, so I'm sure he knows what he's doing. He's obviously a lot smarter than I am. He's got a game plan, he's sticking to it.
It's still great pace from our leading 3. Last lap for Chaz Mostert, pretty sure, was the fastest lap of the race at 2:06.9. I can't see nothing better than that as I look up and down my timing screen. So your top 3 are the right mix of fight and pace. They are not being caught at all by anyone behind. They're extending their lead. Vaughan at the lead here, now 10 seconds clear of Chastanoff, leading the next pack in 4th, as you can see to the timing screen. What they are going to start getting is a little bit of traffic though. 6.2 kilometers of circuit. There are other drivers who've made their pit stops or been involved in battles. That might be David Baz there, that at least your top 2 and now your top 3 are all going to get through with no dramas. Mostert, good run at the leader though. Vaughan taking the defense into the final corner. The group behind though, they are all under a blanket as well.
So we look at the little battle pack that's formed off the top 3 at the moment. Nothing's changed there. Still Chastanoff, Hinz and McKellar. McKellar we've seen in the Skip Barb as being very strategic in the past, and he doesn't look like he's putting too much pressure on Thomas Hinz at the moment, but I'm sure he has more in the bag than what he is displaying at the moment. So
Race lead. Mostert senses the opportunity, senses the pace advantage, and sees some of the traffic too. Vaughan going to make him work for it, but even at the very, very inside, that camber in the inside line of Griffin's Bend is where you want to be. Your top three in 0.2 of a second as a train as they come up towards the cutting. They really struggle to pass here. Another place with a little bit of camber that lets you carry speed, but not too much, as he drifts that rear wheel out towards the concrete barrier. Eyes in the mirrors, but also eyes forward. You've got to be careful. You can't be surprised by any of the traffic as you come over the various blind crests and corners and concrete lined apexes that make up the top of the mountain, the most street circuity section. That's an adjective.
The green car you can see in front of him just darting, making their way down the hill at the moment is Vasco Sorosky. So he is back on track after having that little incident earlier on at Griffin's Bend. So he's got a fresh car. He is about to go another lap down as these three focus on Forest Elbow, make their way out with a good run. They are all in slipstream, so I would imagine Vasco staying to one side of the track. Looks like he's picked the right as the leaders make their way past now without too much drama. So Stuart Vaughan and Cam Dance all go past as they make their way down into the big
chase, and Vaughan has a look. And he's going to get that one. I think Mostert saw that kind of ambition and maybe just let him have it. One more lap and they'll be at the halfway point of this one. No hint of a pit stop from these guys, but we've seen a few a bit further down the field. Stuart Crawford, who has stopped now into that 14th place, has shed about 8 seconds since we last checked in with him to the leaders here, though. So we'll see if he keeps that one up. He might be slipping just a little bit compared to those who are in the draft and working together. Last lap, not able to match the pace of Chastanoff, Hinz, McKellar, some of those other drivers he was with before he made that early call onto pit lane. Because despite battling each other, the pace is still really good out of Chastanoff, Hinz, and McKellar. I'm glad we have a nickname for all three: Chasty, Hinzy, Stella, McKellar.
Yeah, they can be a bit of a mouthful, but you can see Thomas Hinz there again on the left-hand side of the track. Chastanoff using up the right before he moves back across into the braking zone, back onto the racing line. So these three here in formation as they have for probably about the last 6 laps at the moment. So not too much change there. We'll look further back, and this is the car of 198 and 72, Ira Felberg, battling for 12th and 13th. So just over a second separating these two drivers here. And draft using to the maximum benefit there for Ira Felberg as he makes his way to the back of what is the 198 car of Leon Williams.
There we have it. Yeah, Felberg. Sean McKenzie on the pit lane for the second time. So that's going to be potentially a problem of some kind for him. Yes. It's Hinz following Chastanoff. Downhill, you pick up the speed. It then makes the slipstream so powerful when the track starts to head back uphill. And then back down the hill, picking up yet more speed at the apex point. Wave to Robbo's on the left, and then try to pick your braking zone flat out through that kink. And then looking to brake maybe at 100 in these kind of cars. Much shorter braking zones than you might be used to in larger, heavier touring cars.
They're using the downforce to make their way through the chase underneath the Armorall Bridge and the final corner as they make their way around to what will be lap number 12 of the down 10 laps to go. It's formation as per normal on screen at the moment, but a bit further up the field. It's Cam Dance who's actually taken the fastest lap of the race. I tell a lie, Chaz Mossett's just beat him again by another 10th. So there's sheep station stuff up the front of the field here tonight as we watch Stuart Vaughan, Chaz Mossett, Cam Dance. They are literally running away with this at the moment and have a good gap on the cars behind. So
head and shoulders above, aren't they? I mean, 6'8", 6'7", 6'8" from your top three here plays 2-minute 8 flat from even the trio behind them in 4th, 5th, and 6th. No one is matching the pace of these three. Starting to get a little bit more aggressive up front, but there's another problem in the pack here. Is this Oh, poor Craig Kermond again. So, again, you're unsighted. The car disappears out of view. You turn into the corner, and on the exit, boom, there's one right where you were going to place your car.
Yeah, looking at the colour schemes, that might have been Roy Clark facing across the track and becoming
85 Donald Sabinell was very cat reflexes to avoid that one as well. They've been getting a little punchier up front, which to me suggests that some or all of them are thinking about pitting this lap, next lap, maybe the lap after. Enough drivers have pitted, the field spread far enough that if you thought you could, you might be able to undercut someone at this point.
Well, someone's got to blink first as we make our way under the Armour Bridge. There's a bit of a dummy there by Stuart Vaughan. The other two don't fall for it, so they go around to make another circulation of this 6.2 kilometre circuit. But saying one of them is going to have to make the move first off, and you'd suggest if it's Stuart Vaughan out in front, the other two will follow suit, but I think it'll be Cam Dance, the first one to make a dive into the pits, and then you'll see the other two react to it the following lap.
Vaughan's led almost the whole way, so the guys behind will have burnt a little bit less fuel. They can just follow Vaughan in if they want to, if he's the first one to flinch from up the front. The next group again. Chastity was defensive on the pit straight towards Hell Corner. Hins took the hint. And McKellar still just in the third wheel position there. Here comes Ira Felberg from 13th. Now means that your top 12 haven't pitted, and Stuart Crawford moves up into 13th as the lead car that has cleared their stop and should be fueled to get to the end.
Across the top of the mountain as they duck down and change their elevation there up over the hill. Chastanoff looking like he has this under control, but Thomas Hins again not showing his full deck of hands, full deck of cards. I think he's sitting there waiting for an opportunistic moment there to pounce on Chastanoff, and of course we've got McKellar in the background doing very similar. So these guys are very well seasoned within the Ozicar family, and they know that tripping over each other is certainly not going to do themselves any favours, particularly if any of these guys out in front happen to make contact and trip over themselves, because they could find themselves on the back end of the podium with any luck. So Chaz Mostert just having a quick look at Vaughan there into the braking zone of the chase. Couldn't get the job done, but are we going to see anyone dive into the pits this time around?
Wow, there you go. Vaughan from the lead's going to pit. Mostert and Dance carry on. That will be so interesting. Is that going to be a masterstroke for Vaughan, or is it going to leave him high and dry while the other two guys pump in some quick laps and he's cut adrift? Chastity, Hins, McKellar, they all dodge the pit entry. They think they got plenty more fuel to go another lap or maybe a couple more. I don't see anyone else from immediately behind diving in. Banks in 7th, Tressida in 8th, keep going as well. So a slightly early call from Stuart Vaughan, but Russell Clark was 8th or 9th on track, and he hits in as well. These are now your leaders. Chaz Mostert scored in the lead. Cam Dance, his front wing to the rear wing there. An inseparable unit, those top two, trying to overcut Vaughan and looking for a win at Mount Panorama.
Yeah, well, these two here, we are on lap 13 of 22, so we have 9 to go. My calculations tell me they should get approximately 15 laps out of their starting fuel level, so they are going to have to make a dive into the pits this time round to react to Stuart Vaughan's pit strategy last time, or failing that, at worst, the lap after. Otherwise, they won't make it round for a 16th rotation of the circuit.
Best racing driver called Stewart, with the exception of Jackie Stewart.
No arguments?
No? It was an open question. I wasn't putting anyone forward. I mean, Tony Stewart from our producer Jay Kennedy. I've seen that movie, and Stuart Little, I don't think, is cut up for this. So nothing between your top two. Dance as close as he dares at 230 k's an hour, almost front crash structure to rear crash structure, trying to push the reigning Bathurst 1000 champion down Conrod Straight. Are they looking for the pit lane this time, or is there one more lap of fuel in the tank for these F4 cars? Out of the corner, left-hand side of the track, where is Chaz Mostert going? It's to the braking zone of the final corner for one more lap. So at least a 2-lap overcut on Stuart Vaughan, who's on circuit. Pretty tidy pit lane transit time and pit stop. 22 seconds back off these guys. There goes James Chastity to the pit lane, and he separates from Hinz and McKellar. So big gulf and split in the strategies in our top 6 cars.
You can see a big gap there from the first two back to the third place car, which is now Thomas Hinz. He redresses, but he finds himself on the podium at the moment by default after a couple of pit stops of the vehicles in front of him. But importantly, these top two are going to come up onto the lap traffic of car number 23, and that should be John Snell. So it's they may not quite get there before the end of this lap. It might play in their favour to actually dive into the pits at the end of this one. Although I don't think they're going to have much choice. They will be running on the smell of an oily rag if they try and do another one after this.
So there's Vaughan circulating out on track. Was your leader when he pitted, hoping to resume the lead if the undercut can work for him. I think Mostert and Dance have been working together pretty tidily all this way as well, though. So how close will that be when the pit stops shake out? You saw those other guys, Chastity, Brody Tressida, Liam Banks, rejoin. So just your top 4 haven't stopped, and also Donald Sabanel down in 17th at the moment. Everyone else has been through the lane, topped off the tank to get them home in this F4 endurance round.
Yeah, so John Snell there doing his best to get out of the way. The leaders go through unobstructed. Cam Dance has been sitting underneath the rear wing of that Lego Formula 4. Saving fuel, so it'll be interesting whether or not he's right underneath that wing, getting an absolute maximum tow. It will be interesting. We'll find out in hopefully the next couple of seconds whether or not that actually pays dividend and he can make the pass in the pits by putting in slightly less fuel.
It's a challenging pit entry here. Both of them are angling towards it. Oh, and Dance decides to go one more. Very interesting. Through the pit entry goes Mostert, hitting all the curbs and slowing down just in time for the pit lane speed limit. So where Mostert is relative to Stuart Vaughan is going to be very interesting to see. Dance going one more while Hinz and McKellar pit in. Cam Dance would be very, very confident in how much fuel he's got in his car. Here's Stuart Vaughan going through the final corner. Chaz Mostert's just hitting his pit box in garage number 2 right now. It's just a couple seconds of fuel. Mostert on the left-hand side and the inside there going. I reckon Vaughan's going to have this one and be ahead. Mostert's just in the pit exit now. He's going to slot in, out of the slipstream, I think. This has worked out better for Vaughan than I would have thought. Slightly longer fill for Mostert as well, 5.6 seconds compared to 4.8 for Vaughan. So seriously, that 1 second difference in the fuel fill is about the difference between them on track. Sees Mostert out of the slipstream at the moment. Dance, I think you can count on having a pretty slick stop as well.
And so this is Dance's first time in clean air, so he'll be punching a hole in the front of his car as he makes his way down through the mountain here for what will potentially be his last run on this this fuel load. I can't see him doing another one. There wouldn't be that much fuel in the tanks, but sitting back in third may have just paid dividends. So giving himself the option to go that extra lap here, making his way down Conrod Straight. There is an abundance of free space in front of him, a couple of lap cars, but they're not going to be an issue because they are too far ahead. He's not going to catch them before he reaches pit lane.
Just had to Google the price of fuel per litre in New Zealand to understand Cam Dance's fuel savings here. Surely he's got a pit now. He's gone longer than everyone else in the field. Vaughan's made his pit stop. Mostert's made his pit stop. Here comes Cam Dance from the lead of the race. Hinz has also had a pretty good run through that pit lane, and you can see he's managed to jump Chastanoff and McKellar, the three who were inseparable before the pit lane. Now a little further spread out with 6 laps to go. Dance in the lane, heading towards his box, which is going to be at the far end near pit exit.
Yeah, McKellar was on the back of Thomas Hinds when they pitted there. Now there's 5 seconds separating them. So interesting to see the stop time there. But as we look around, this is effectively our race leader, Stuart Vaughan.
Long one for
reclaiming the lead.
Dance. Suspiciously long one for Dance. 7 seconds compared to 4.5 for Vaughan. So he's going to come out, and it's going to be behind Dance. Oh, there's some mangled cars, though, in the gravel. So it's Liam Banks and Brodie Tressida. They're side by side, coming down towards the chase. Banks is round the outside, looking for the apex at the chase. Oh, did he need to give a little more space? Oh, Russell Clark might be a bit miffed with that one as well. Here's the view from the Milo car.
Yeah, collateral damage if we've ever seen it there. Just the car rolling back onto the racing line, and as you make your way out of the chase, there really isn't much of an opportunity to take any other line than the one that he was on. So I think he's made his way back to the pits for a repair, but further back out on track, this is Chaz Mostert, and he is currently sitting in P3.
It's all about the pace right now, isn't it? Vaughan leads, back to that lead, 1.9 seconds clear of Chaz Mostert. Cam Dance, 4 further seconds back. That is a big surprise to me. I don't think he could push full beans on that in-lap. And then the stop was a bit longer than he would have liked as well. So Cam Dance is almost out of this one as they're about to approach 5 to go. Mostert's chance of a win here is he needs to gain a second. He needs to push on and catch the tail of that slipstream of Stuart Vaughan. Otherwise, well, Vaughan can't afford a single misstep, because anything that lets Mostert get back in his toe really, really jeopardizes his race.
We saw the outright pace that Mostert had early in the race as he did manage to pull in that gap of 1.3 seconds, I think it was, to the leading duo that was Vaughan and Dance. So with 5 laps to go, Chaz Mostert, no doubt, is going to throw everything he can at it and challenge this right down to the wire. But 1.5 seconds separating him on track as we speak. Lap traffic just may play a part in this. You can see one of the Miley cars there on the effectively left-hand side of this screen as he makes his way down to turn number 2 to the end of Mountain Straight. Mostert looking very, very racy through Griffin's Bend there, and but not actually managing to close that gap too much to Stuart Vaughan out the front.
A lot of angle and attitude from both cars, Vaughan and Mostert. The tyres have had plenty of chance to get properly heated. The track's 37 Celsius, so it's you could probably walk barefoot on it, but it's not especially kind to the tyres. And as the track gets hotter, you find the lateral grip at larger slip angles as well, typically. Here's Sean Doyle and Stuart Crawford. Doyle around the outside, maybe has to give that one up to Stuart Crawford. Crawford, remember, one of the earliest stoppers, and it didn't quite work out for him in terms of staying in touch with the drivers that he was in the pack with. Against Doyle here, I think he's going to hold on to that one at the minute. Gap's coming down between your top 2 though, and I'd say Mostert's really only 3 or 4 tenths away. One tiny, tiny correction from Stuart Vaughan from Mostert being in that slipstream, being in that toe, and it'll be a 2-horse race at the end the way it's tracking.
Yeah, Vaughan there just about on the back of Vasco Swarovski, so he'll be getting a little bit of draft on the end of Conrod Straight here and potentially down Mountain Straight next time by. You can see Chaz Mostert there moving right across to the right-hand side of the circuit, kicking up a little bit of dirt in the braking zone, so he is maximising the tarmac out there at the moment, just trying to carry as much speed as he can potentially through these corners and getting every single little bit of advantage that he can. That gap now, a lap ago, was 1.5 seconds. It is down under 1.2 at the moment, so Mostert out on track. He has got his eyes focused on the back of Stuart Vaughan, and they make their way up Mountain Straight here. As I said, Vaughan underneath the rear wing of Vasco Swarovski now moves out to the right-hand side, gets the move done, and of course that gives Chaz Mostert the potential to draft.
Does not want to be involved in this lead battle whatsoever. That is 1.3 seconds. Just look at the slip on the rear tyre as it turn into every corner for Chaz Mostert. starts to turn the car in and it rotates really, really quickly. And you also see it as he gets the throttle open on some of the exits. They're all doing it. It's a way to drive these cars quickly is to just muscle them around a little bit, slide the tail.
While the action up front is plentiful, and we do see Chaz Mostert there pulling in that gap to the ones in front, I'm just looking down the timing screen, and a couple of drivers that probably deserve a shout out that have done well so far. We've got Dennis Hancock from 19th up into the top 10, Darren Shannon there from 17 up to 11, and Matthew Harriott from 26 up to 12. So a couple of drivers there outside the top 10, just looking for an opportunity to bag a heap of points there after a qualifying effort that potentially maybe didn't indicate their true speed.
Unflappable. Mostert hit the wall on the exit of the elbow, and I don't think he lifted. And he's just kept it pinned. It's all or nothing, I think, here. I don't think he wants to finish second. I don't think he's interested in finishing second. No one's interested in finishing second at Bathurst. And you can see he almost has to cut some of the grass on the right-hand side of the circuit there, just doing everything possible, coming to 3 laps to go to get within that 1 second. He just needs to chip away a 10th and then another 10, get within that 1 second. The slipstream will do the rest, and then he can fight on level footing against Stuart Vaughan for the win.
Yeah, well, Mostert still with the fastest lap of the race at 2:06.577. That is only about 0.2 quicker than Stuart Vaughan. So Vaughan just about matching him lap for lap. Hasn't quite got the bragging rights for the fastest lap, but certainly doing enough at the moment to retain that lead out in front. But the gap is just under a second. So time running out, 3 laps to go as they cross the line for this one by. It'll be interesting to see whether or not Vaughan can hold on. But interestingly, in the background, Dance sitting in third. He's dropped off the back of this party here. He is just going to have to settle for a third spot on the podium unless something happens with these two out in front.
Within that critical second now, Vaughan being closed in rapidly by Mostert, who only needs to be tidy across the top of the mountain, and then he'll get that monster toe down the very long Conrod Straight to, I don't know, some might call it the fastest corner in Australian motorsports and the most committed you'll ever see. So how will that look at the end of this one? Mostert just getting close enough with just enough time in this race to battle it out for that win. Vaughan has led many, many a lap. I think Mostert's just getting him just in time for us to see a great battle to the closing stages.
The way underneath the Mitsubishi.
And by some I mean Scafie, obviously.
Yeah, into the braking zone now there. This is where Mostert has proven himself to be very, very strong, out using the ripple strip as a change of direction. And this is as close as they have been in a number of laps, almost back to where they were at the halfway point of the race. Really heavy braking there into the last corner, and the gap is now under about 1.5 tenths.
Yep, 2 laps to go as they cross the start-finish line. 2 more times around Mount Panorama Bathurst for the Ozicar F4 Series endurance round. And there is just about nothing now to separate your race leader Stuart Vaughan from Chaz Mostert as they go up the mountain straight. Mostert closes in once again, and it's gonna have to be a pretty definite and a pretty committed move to get past Vaughan though, and you've got to time it in a way that makes it difficult for Vaughan to try to take it back as well. So in Mostert's shoes right now, when and where do you try to pass?
Low fuel, and that slipstream, Mostert just took another 3.5 tenths out of his fastest lap time of the race. So just extending that dominance there to bring everything he can out of that Formula 4 to get on the back of Stuart Vaughan here. So they're making their way across the top of the mountain. It really is a single file parade as the spectators cheer them on across there before they make their way through Skyline and start the descent down through the treacherous S's, followed by the VB dipper into Forest Elbow.
It says Cooper's on it now, but it says something else depending on what the race is. It might be John Snell that they're starting to catch. I think it is, and that causes a little bit of a moment for Stuart Vaughan. Coming towards this white flag, you'd almost be tempted to let Mostert go and try to reclaim it next time on the final lap down the Conrod Straight. Is that what he's doing? He's leaving the inside very open to Chaz Mostert, carrying the speed to the inside, to the chase, to the quick turn in. Mostert right at the curb is going to have to brake around the outside, and he's going to have to brake earlier than Vaughan did, as Vaughan overcooked it. Was Mostert done to perfection? They're side by side again on the exit. Mostert runs out of room, across the curb, across the grass. Barney's waiting for them with the white flag. This is for the big bickies on the final lap, and they are right back as they were 1 lap ago with now 1 to go.
Yeah, in a short 2 minutes, we're going to find our victor here tonight after this 22 laps Enduro race here in the Ozicar Formula 4 Series. This is what it all comes down to. We promised an absolute stellar end to this race here tonight, and these two gentlemen out on track are proving to deliver exactly what we've promised. Chaz
Inside line to Griffin's Bend for Stuart Vaughan. Doesn't want to give this one up just yet, and he'll hold on to it, and there's no grip out wide and up high for Chaz Mostert. I'd still take that though. You're looking to time your run perfectly off the Forest Elbow and down Conrod Straight. That's your key passing place you've got left if you're Mostert. He's a couple car lengths further back than he's been in past, but you need just a little bit of space to build up that run to carry that speed.
I don't think Mostert will be planning on being so far back. He's got half a second there. He has been very, very strong on the downhill section, so this is where we potentially could see him make up that gap and find himself in the prime position going into Forest Elbow. Change the direction down through here, third gear as they make their way down through the...
It's around, too much speed at the dipper, got an airborne, half looped it around, and Mostert, chasing full commitment, has a problem. Still going to just manage to hold off Cam Dance, I think, but that let Stuart Vaughan off the hook. You saw how hard Mostert had to push across the top of the hill to be within striking distance for the Conrod Straight, and he's just overstepped it. Too much speed, too much air at the dipper. It's a steep part of the track, and it's a steep price to pay for Chaz Mostert, because Stuart Vaughan now, 8 seconds clear, can roll this thing down the hill to the checkered flag for this 50-minute Enduro round of Ozicar F4 Series. We questioned leading all of those laps early. We questioned the early pit stop, but it paid off to perfection for Stuart Vaughan. He made everyone else chase him. Chaz Mostert, an uncharacteristic crack under pressure, and Stuart Vaughan takes a very well-deserved win. Mostert, despite the half spin, despite needing to grab reversed gear, just gets it to the line ahead of Dance. There's a few drivers, though, struggling on the fuel. Thomas Hinz, one of them, has had to let James Chastanoff through. Can McKellar Striker, is he too far back? And I've heard maybe some fuel dramas for Sean Doyle as well. Gosh, you're lucky the checkered flag's at the bottom of the hill, not at the top.
So we jump on board with Sean Doyle now. He is currently in 8th. He's looking back at the attacking car behind him, but making it across the line there, so no fuel dramas for him. He plays it safe. Battling still on the lead lap is car number 85 and car number 16. This is Donald Sabinal and Matthew Harriet. Harriet, we did mention earlier on, making up a massive 14 positions to find himself in P12, I think it is at the moment. So he is challenging for P11. But Donald looking like he is playing the defensive card going into the final corner. They can't go too wide through here, surely.
Great park from Sabinal, and he'll hold on to that one. Brody Shepherd and Benjamin Wheeler. Brody Shepherd's with the nose in front. Wheeler follows him through the chase. Long stop in this one for Brody Shepherd with what was a damaged car, I think. So he's tried to fight his way back as best he could. He's just stayed on the lead lap from what I can tell. And his teammate, Brody Tressida, again, one with a bit of trouble. Ira Fellberg's going to try to defend the inside. And Griffins gets a little too much of the curb, and around the outside just works for Brody Tressida in the 20th and 21st spots. Look at those results then. Stuart Vaughan, so much pressure on him, just played it to perfection as a game of tenths to take the win here. from Chaz Mostert and Cam Dance, and then Chastanov gets that 4th place back as Thomas Hinds ran out of fuel and coasted it across the line in 5th place. Alex McKellar in 6th, Liam Banks 7th, quiet achiever there I'd say, and Sean Doyle in 8th likewise. Stuart Crawford, early stop, gets 9th place. Dennis Hancock into the top 10.
Just looking across the page, Darren Shannon there, P11, doing a good job to finish just outside of the top end there. Donald Sabinell and Matthew Harriet, we saw them battle across the line for 12-13. Russell Clark, Adrian Duke and Andrew Ritchie finishing 14, 15, 16. Brody Shepherd, Ben Wheeler, Nathan Verney and Brody Tressiter, they round out your top 20 here tonight at Bathurst for what has been round 4 of the Ozicar Formula 4 Series. Over the page, Ira Philberg, Sean McKenzie, Warren Henry, Darren Lasue, and John Snell being the first driver off the lead lap. He was in the company of Vasco Sorowski, Craig Kerman, and Leon Williams. And then we look further back, Roy Clark finishing 2 laps down after being a roadblock there at Forest Elbow earlier in the race. And Gregory Adams calling it quits some 10 laps into the race to finish 12 off the pace.
Bathurst can be a really cruel track at times as well, though, with those walls ever so close, and it bit the likes of David Baz, Alex Cuvier, Max Lumsden, Brady Baldwin, Reese Howell, Scott Harvey, and I think that wasn't taking the green flag for Dean Russell. 36 cars started, and there could only be one winner, and it was Stuart Vaughan. He's with us now. A lot of pressure on you in that closing stint. Tell us about the decision then to take that pit stop a little bit earlier than the guys you were racing with.
Well, there wasn't much thought to it. It was pretty, I sort of saw them coming behind me. So I thought if I pit now and let them battle for a couple of laps, we might come out ahead. And I really actually thought I short fueled it, given how far ahead I was at the end of the pit stops. But I took 11 litres, Chaz took 10, and I'm not sure, maybe did Cam Dance take tyres or something? Because, yeah, we sort of came out quite separate, which was surprising.
Surprised us a little bit as well. You had that slipstream broken after the pit stops, which of course is really important around here. Uphill on the mountain straight and VMAX down Conrod Straight. How large did you have that relative box on your screen?
Well, I can tell you now, I was having flashbacks to Bathurst 2014 when Chaz closing in on Wing Cup there. So I was sort of panicking a little bit going, oh no, here we go. But it sort of worked out in the end. So no, it was a good battle, good race.
How were the conditions then? Because this is a difficult track no matter the conditions, no matter the car. They're a little more fragile than the touring cars and GTs that might be popular around here.
The track actually seemed to have a fair bit of grip. I mean, it was about 37 degrees out there on the track, but it seemed to be all right, similar to practice, so it was pretty straightforward. I mean, as you can see from the racing, it was basically a draft battle. So, yeah, even if you were gaining a couple of tenths in the braking zones, it wasn't too important.
Well, congratulations to you once again. A lot of pressure there from Cam Dance and from Chaz Mostert all through the race, and came down to just keeping it tidy, executing perfectly. You did that, and you take some big points too.
Yeah, thanks for the broadcast, guys, and thanks everyone for watching.
2 rounds in a row. Jason Fewens, the pleasure of speaking to Chaz Mostert is all yours.
Welcome to the commentary box, Chazzy. A race to remember there, 22 laps around Bathurst here tonight. I reckon you had your hands full for probably 21 and a half of those, putting everything on the line there in the final lap, but just falling short, unfortunately. But nonetheless, just adding a heap of points to your championship total.
Yeah, thanks. I'm obviously not thinking about the championship. I obviously wanted to try and win that one, and yeah, those boys at the front are super quick. Obviously, Stuart and Cameron do a fantastic job on the sim, and it's always a pleasure racing those guys. So threw everything at Stuart on the last lap, but kind of tipped it into the dipper like a supercar, and the F4 didn't quite like that.
Well, I'd be keen to see what pedals you're actually running, because I'd imagine you put your foot through the floor just trying to pull it up. You did a stellar job to keep it off the wall, and managed to keep it facing in the right direction and retain that second position, although Cam Dance was coming in at a great rate of knots, but you did what you needed to do to get across the line in second.
Yeah. I mean, obviously happy not to bing the car. It would have been pretty upsetting to crash on the last lap, and not get anything for it. So glad I pulled up, and then then obviously still had a few more corners that I had to try and make sure I had enough gap to cam. So overall it was a good fun race. When I first got into the practice, I couldn't believe the times the guys were doing in these cars around there. So it took the whole practice session to get up to speed.
Well, I'd suggest that some of them were probably doing some virtual laps while you were running around on the weekend, getting nice and wet and soggy over in South Australia, but you've obviously picked up the speed and managed to come away with an absolutely stellar performance here tonight. So we've been at Bathurst, which is the first of our Enduros this season. Next week we will be moving across to Japan. I think it is Sabuka, potentially Tsukuba. So complete different mindset, tight twisty track, and again very well suited for these Formula 4s.
Yeah, no, I won't be able to make that one, but look, these Enduros are fun. I like pit stops. The old Formula V races, when we even had sprints in the pit stops, it just gives it that element to learn your pit entries and your pit exits and make sure you don't make any mistakes there, and then maximize the time. So it's always good when there's a different strategy. Stuart obviously went a couple laps earlier than us, and it was going to be interesting to see where he popped out. I didn't expect him to pop out so far in front, but really had to get the head down towards the end there. So more for these pit stop races if you've got them coming.
You've proven yourself to be one of the Ozicar favourites, and welcome back any time. But head down's what you did. You managed to get onto the back of Stuart Vaughan there, but again, congratulations on a P2 tonight. It's one of those what could have been, but you threw everything at it and put on a hell of a performance for those watching on Simspeed TV, which is all we can ask for. So great result tonight, and hopefully we'll see you back in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, cheers guys, have a good one.
That's our second place getter here tonight at Bathurst for what has been round 4 of the Ozicar Formula 4 Series. We do have our third place getter in Cam Dance. He joins us in the commentary box, and he is with David Haynes.
Dance Mania in the slipstream all the way through that first stint. Tell us what happened at the stop.
Sunbury decided he was going to put those rubber round things on instead of not taking those rubber round things, and it cost me in the pit stop, unfortunately. So lesson learned, don't take tyres in these cars because it is far longer than filling up the car, but it is what it is. I mean, still P3 on the board at the end of the day, still a very good chunk of points. It was a championship, and can't complain too much, especially with the 0x bonus and pole.
You're thinking that championship game, and you were thinking that championship game pretty early, I think, with how you sat in the slipstream and followed the leaders. Yeah,
to some extent. I mean, obviously, fuel saving was going to be the biggest point of interest, with the fact that we had to make a pit stop for fuel. It was going to be very minimal as to sort of the gain out of it if you ended up fuel saving. I found, based on the fact we weren't burning all that much difference in the draft versus clean air, so maximising the amount of fuel saving was going to be really, really key to trying to get a quick stop, which didn't end up working out for me. But it was more about championship and more trying to see if I can get as good of a result here as possible. Obviously, I knew it was going to be an easy podium based on the fact we just pulled away from the rest of the field pretty quickly. But a little bit bummed to not get a second or even a first, but still a podium at the end of the day.
Yeah, great pace and did pull away from the rest. Well, what do you think about Tsukuba coming up as the next round? Much tighter, twistier, a little bit flatter. If we see another big grid, that is going to be a unique race as well.
Yeah, I'd say it's not really a track I'm looking forward to with these cars, especially with a big grid as well. It's going to make aero push and following each other really a massive pain in the butt. So we'll see what happens. I guess it's going to be an interesting one, and qualifying is probably going to be really important as a result of the fact that passing opportunities are going to be far and few between. But hey, look, still got to keep on doing it, got to soldier on and deal with it.
Any particular corners here at Bathurst that you noticed a big difference in clean air versus in the pack?
Probably the dipper, I want to say, and probably also the exit of the chase. That was probably the biggest ones because of the fact that you're just carrying so much speed on the way in, and then you've got to obviously scrub all that speed off, and as a result, by the time you've done that, you've ended up losing about 2/10 or 3 car lengths by the time you get to the exit of the corner. So you really had to make sure that you were pulling it up late enough, but also not losing too much time, which is also where that fuel saving helped as well.
Well, as I usher you out the door, we're looking at the Orbit car. Tell us about the team.
Yeah, so obviously it's pretty much a rebrand of the Fitstyle Motorsport crew. Pretty much everybody's still here as per what we had previously, and yeah, it's just pretty much a rebrand of the car, new livery obviously, and a couple new sponsors as well. We've got Hybrid Tune on board, which is more of road vehicle sort of side to the TechSense and Renval stuff. Really cool to have them on the car, and obviously a completely different livery as well, a metallic space theme to it, with the fact that obviously the name is Orbit Motorsport, so we couldn't go wrong there with a bit of a metallic space theme, a sort of starry night, I guess, and then a bit of fluoro yellow to break it up from more or less where the Hybrid Tune stuff comes from. So yeah, really cool to have this whole team rebranded. Everybody's been really cool in the way that they've accepted it and obviously gone along with it, and yeah, it's been really good so far, and we've got a lot of good results.
We sure gave Vaughan and Mostert plenty of space after that pit stop strategy. See you next round.
Yeah, we'll do.
Jason, final thoughts though from Bathurst as we look towards Tsukuba, the next round in 2 weeks, Monday, August 15th. As it says on the screens, I mean, you don't have bad racing at Bathurst when you get the kind of guys we've got week in, week out here in Ozicar. Chaz Mostert, massively talented. You don't need us to tell you that. You can, turn on your television to see that. But then Stuart Vaughan holding on to that pressure. Dance playing the strategy pretty strong, and they all give each other just enough space. Drivers like that at a track like Bathurst.
Yeah, well, it's a recipe for a great race, and we saw that here tonight. So there was a number of drivers that potentially could have thrown their hat in the ring to be podium getters there tonight. Thomas Hinds was one of them. James Chastanoff quite early on, he finished fourth at the end of the day, 20 seconds or so off the pace. But the likes of Alex McKellar, Sean Doyle, there's a handful of names that have proven themselves to be quick in the Aussie car, both Skip Barber, Formula V, and now Formula 4 Series. So the talent in this field is as deep as you'll find potentially anywhere on this service. And tonight we just highlighted just what a great bunch of guys we have, and the commitment and the skill level that is on offer.
Always fantastic racing in these F4 cars, and fantastic visiting a lot of the great Australian tracks that are here on iRacing. Panorama, Phillip Island, Winton, Sandown, Oran Park. It's been great, and we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time in Japan at Tsukuba, and a big thanks, of course, to the Aussie car supporters that make this championship, the racing and the broadcast here on SimSpeed possible. Prestige Trophy Badge and Engraving, Sim Racing Leagues, the Locked On iRacing podcast, and Chaz's campaign No Social Hate as well. What a fantastic 50-minute endurance race. Will be a different character of racing, but the same crew and the same car in 2 weeks' time at Tsukuba. David Haynes, Jason Fewens, Jay Kennedy. Make sure you're subscribed to Simspeed TV, whatever platform you're watching us on, and we look forward to seeing you there.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got around the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?